Now, bandits at the weekend terrorized towns in Nigeria's Sokoto State and Zamfara State, killing 62 people. 37 people were feared dead and several others injured in the attacks on Raka Dutse, and Filingawa settlement in Sokoto State, Tangaza Local Government Area. In a separate attack, bandits raided 2 communities in the Maradun Local Government Area of Zamfara State, killing at least 25 people on Saturday. The attacks came just 1 week after bandits killed more than 25 people, including 16 vigilantes in the Kanoma district of a state Maru Local Government Area. The attacks come just 2 days after President Bola Tinubu, in his first meeting with service chiefs and heads of security agencies, requested centralized coordination of security architecture. The president also urged them to renew efforts to eradicate insecurity. And now joining me from Gombe State, Nigeria, to unpack this latest development is Ahmed Musa Hussaini, the public affairs commentator. Thank you so much, Musa, for joining me on the news.
Hi, thank you.
It's a pleasure. And now, Musa, what factors would we say have contributed to the recent escalation of killings in Nigeria's northwest region, especially in Sokoto and Zamfara State? For some time now, we didn't hear about the killings, but all of a sudden it's back. What would you say contributed to that?
Yeah, so I won't call it escalation. I would say it's actually a familiar trend in Nigeria's security challenges. So usually it's a bit understandable in the sense that usually after every surge in violence, it is followed by a public outcry, forcing the government to take some action, which now results in some decline in violence, by those criminal actors for some time before another cycle begins. So this is largely because government is unable to sustain the momentum against those criminals long enough to defeat or eliminate them, and therefore in the process, it is now result in a cycle of violence with peak and off peak phases, which further drags the conflict and the suffering of affected communities. And this is actually happening because our security forces are overstretched. You have Boko Haram in the northeast, you have IPOB in the southeast, you have other forms of criminality elsewhere, and we lack the resources to adequately confront those challenges. So at the end of the day, we have overstretched security services. We have scarce resources to effectively respond to emerging challenges, and then so we have to be working, and we have to be rational, or trying to prioritize which areas to actually secure effectively and not. And then so when you have any kind of lack or any kind of lack of momentum in one place, then it picks up in another place, and that's the kind of situation that we're in, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, Musa. Now, some persons will argue that the former administration didn't do right by the citizens when it comes to security, banditry, and tackling those terrorism. And there's a new administration now. So how would we assess the new response? I know it still looks too soon to tell, but do we say that they're doing enough when it comes to tackling this violence, incessant killings in these areas? Is it enough, or are there areas that they need to work on?
Yeah, I think, as you said, it is too early to judge the new administration. It is still yet to appoint some key security chiefs and officials to drive its security agenda. But going from what we've seen so far, one major departure from the previous administration is the way President Tinubu handles the recent DSS-EFCC feud in Lagos that led to the DSS blocking the EFCC from accessing its offices. President Tinubu immediately directed them to vacate and issued a stern warning, which now indicate that he's not going to tolerate the unhealthy rivalry and infighting that characterize interagency relationship among Nigerian security agencies under the Buhari administration. So on this one, I think we are going to see some kind of coordinated response and some kind of discipline in the way rival security agencies manage themselves and their relationship with each other. But for now, it is too early to call because the security chiefs and other officials managing the security at the moment are also appointees of the previous administration.
Now, still speaking on speculation, some would say that there are certain socio-economic or political factors that could attribute to the violence in the northwest region, or at least be fueling it. If that's the case, how do you think this relates to the recent surge in killings?
Yeah, so I think that's very true, actually. The violence in the Northwest is more socio-economic than security, in my own opinion. And it has so many underlying social, political, economic, and cultural factors that are fueling the conflict. The problem is all past governments approach it as a security issue and only a security issue. But in reality, the violence in the Northwest is first a social, a communal issue before being a security one. And we must approach it as such. So discussing, I think these many factors is actually beyond, this kind of just a brief television punditry. But I also believe there are many experts that have written extensively, on that, and there are many, you know, plans and proposals before the government talking about how to, respond to this conflict in a very comprehensive way. So the problem is there's little interest or incentive on the part of government or those in power to actually pursue approaches, those far-reaching approaches, because at the end of the day, it puts the bulk of the blame at the doorstep of those in power. So it is a kind of kind of blame avoidance by people in authority by not looking at the conflict in its multifaceted form and perspectives. So
Right.
instead of treating that,
Right. Apologies, Musa. Now, I was also going to ask. I mean, there's been too many killings lately, and too many lives have been lost, and so many people displaced as well. So we all agree that something needs to be done. So, in your opinion, what measures should be taken to restore peace and security in Sokoto, Zamfara, and the rest of the northern areas, relatively?
so you're right. Actually, I think the new administration needs to come up with a comprehensive security plan that addresses the diverse social, economic, cultural, and political aspect of the conflict. I think, and for me, this plan must separate those aspects of the conflict that are fueled by genuine grievances, because there are genuine grievances that are fueling the conflict. And then there are also aspects of the conflict that are driven by pure criminality. So whatever plan that the government is going to implement, it must, addresses, those concerns, those areas, those dynamics. And identifying those genuine grievances is important in driving reconciliation, driving rehabilitation, even in when it comes to reparations and payment of compensation to affected communities and individuals. But at the same time, it's also help in sidelining the purely criminal elements in the conflict. So it's a kind of innovative carrot and stick approach that allow the government to first approach the conflict from a very using a multi approach or a multi pronged approach, and at the same time addresses the underlying concerns and grievances fueling it. Then for government to do that, it must first establish its own security superiority.
Right.
That is, it's preserving its own monopoly
Right.
of violence.
All right, Ahmed, I'm sorry because of our time, we'll have to end it there. But thank you so much for your contribution on the news with me. Thanks for joining me once again.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.